This is a video of the MiniBio I recently gave at our combined Probus Club of North Oakville. Those of you that know me know I'm a charter member of this club. I've been your president. I've arranged outings and events. I've conducted meetings. I've run elections. I have, over the years, both bored you and entertained you. But never ever have I given my MiniBio. Why? Because until today, the equipment has not measured up to my presentation. So here goes. Well, actually it started earlier than that, but I don't have any pictures of that event. Suffice to say that March Madness resulted in a beautiful Christmas gift for my parents. I was born on December the 24th in the year of These were the Depression years, yet for the first 5 years of my life I have a feeling that I was thoroughly spoiled. People were lucky to have work of any kind, but I'm very sure that my father had a job, and what's more, my mother also worked in a box factory. In later years, when she told us about making boxes, she was very proud of her accomplishments. This meant that there was money for food, clothing, pints of beer, and trips to the seaside. It also meant that because there was no daycare, I was cared for by my grandmother, my Nanny Bailey, with the occasional help of my grandmother's sister, Aunt Anna. I wish you'd known Aunt Anna. She was a character that one cannot forget. You see, she had been on the stage. That was at the time of the music halls, or burlesques as they were called in North America. Aunt Anna sang. How well, I can't say, because a child of 2 or 3 has little concept of good or bad singing. But I do have vague memories of being at my Nan's house and Aunt Anna showing me how to sing and dance. At the end of my lessons, I had to go in the other room to practice, then come out and do my act. Perhaps for their amusement, but probably to keep me busy and out of trouble. This picture was probably taken about age 2 and probably commemorating a birthday. My dad took me to the photographer's to have it taken. Can you see why my mother was so annoyed when she saw it? Look at the buttons. They are done up incorrectly. My poor dad paid for it to be taken, and he paid for it forever after. Wasn't I a lovely, chubby, overweight child? Somehow, no one worried about that then. But I'm worried now. I seem to be regressing. Everything went reasonably well. I attended school. I got scraped knees. Oh yes, I almost forgot. At age 5, I also got hit by a car and spent 6 months in the hospital having my legs sewn back together. But that turned out all right, except that when I came home from the hospital, with the aid of crutches, my dear old dad was adamant that I couldn't use them. His very cockney words were, "No kid of mine is going to be an effing cripple." Fortunately, this having to perambulate without them imbued in me a sense of creativity and the knowledge that with a little effort I could do anything. I was soon running and playing with the boys on the street. I always did like the boys. I was very popular with the boys because of what I possessed. I was a proud owner of a Silver Cross doll's carriage. Anyone who's familiar with a regular Silver Cross baby carriage knows the quality of which I speak. This same quality was in the smaller version. Removable seat pads and a hood that could swing back and forth. You may wonder, why would this make the boys want to play with me? Rough and tumble Cockney boys. Perhaps I should mention that it was wartime. World War II time. Still no clue? Well, you see, by removing the inside seat pads, a child could easily sit inside, and the hood, which swiveled on a pivot point, could be raised at the back to enable this same child to peer out with toy gun in hand. This delightful little girl's toy with one child inside, when pushed at breakneck speed by another child, became a marvelous and menacing tank. Ah, to be a sweet little girl again. As I was saying, the war. This double-decker bus in a bomb crater occurred very close to where we lived. Many children were evacuated away from London to keep them safe from the bombings. We were evacuated a number of times, but my mother never let us go alone. She always went with us. The first time I recall was to a place in Wiltshire known as Castle Combe. We were billeted in this very large structure that was owned by the Wills Tobacco Company. You may know them as Imperial Tobacco. Castle Combe is most famous for being portrayed as a fishing port in the filming of Dr. Dolittle, starring Rex Harrison and Anthony Newley. Anyway, we stayed in what I think must now have been the manor house of the castle. My mother, my young sister, who was about 2 years old, and I. House, castle, whatever, it was all too much for my mother. She couldn't handle it. After 2 weeks of the butler serving us meals at a table that looked to me to be the size of a tennis court, my very proud but easily intimidated Cockney mother decided to throw in the towel and head back to the bombs and the shelters of London. Whenever things got really bad again in London, we would again head off to calmer climes, but that first one really sticks in my memory. For those of you who have heard my Benefits of Bilingualism speech, where I speak about my struggles to overcome my Cockney heritage and learn the English language, subsequent to winning a scholarship to a young ladies' grammar school, I won't bore you with further details. So I'll jump now to my teenage years, when I spent weekends cycling all over southern England. This is a picture of some of the club members and me on the road to Brighton. My other love at the time was ballroom dancing, something I still love today. That's where I met my husband-to-be. I knew he was the love of my life, because I was 18 and I knew everything. March seems to play a big part in my life. This time we are Canada bound. I wanted to look good for Canada, so I wore my brand new English leather high-heeled pumps. Of course, I didn't realize that in Canada it could snow a blizzard in March. Yes, it did, and it was a doozy. They were lovely shoes. For the one day they lasted. The job market wasn't too wonderful in the 50s. I did manage to get a day job adding up numbers, but I made a few extra bucks in the evening, soliciting. No, not that kind. Telephone soliciting. Selling dance lessons for Arthur Murray. I can still remember the come-on. You've just won a free lesson to the Arthur Murray Dance Studios. Isn't that wonderful? Not everyone thought so. This picture was taken during a 4-day trip to New York. Believe it or not, as Ripley says, that hair was neither washed nor combed during the entire stay. Each night it was carefully wrapped in toilet paper to keep its shape. Upon returning home, Only the hairdresser could take it down and release any flying objects from its center. Over the years, my son Craig and daughters Lisa and Laura were born, along with various dogs, cats, and other small hairy creatures. Some stayed, some didn't. Then came my years of sorrow. After which, there is a blank period of my life. I lived through it. I got up in the morning, I went to bed at night. My other children needed to be fed. For food, I became the takeout queen of Scarborough. Eventually, I acknowledged that the sun occasionally shone, and I learned that laughter is truly the best medicine. But there was another price to pay. What more can I say? Eventually, I found my way to Oakville. Oakville has been my grounding place. I found Toastmasters and Probus. What more could I ask? This is Fred Giroux, our first president, serenading little shy me at one of our meetings. Here's where I would like to say a big, big thank you to Fred for picking me as his running mate in those early days. Oh yes, I forgot to mention all the jobs I've held throughout my life. Apart from the biggest one, that of mother and wife, I've juggled figures, been a licensed insurance agent, sold real estate, been a VP of a major pizza franchisor. I'm a published author. I've run my own training company. I've made crafts and sold them on the internet. But my favorite job is the one I do now. I work for the government. They pay me to be retired, and I love it. Thank you. It has been my pleasure to share my story with all of you.